In the good old days, protecting military aircraft was relatively straightforward. You painted them gray, flew them high and fast, and maybe threw in some chaff and flares if things got spicy. But today, your multi-billion-dollar stealth fighter can be taken down by something that costs less than a used Honda Civic and fits in a backpack. Back in World War II, air defense meant pointing a bunch of guns at the sky and hoping for the best. Anti-aircraft artillery was basically spray and pray with extra steps. Sure, you had radar, but it was about as complex as a microwave oven and couldn't heat up your dino nuggies. Even early surface-to-air missiles like the Soviet S-75 Divina were basically flying telephone poles with anger management issues. They were big, expensive, and required an entire radar installation the size of a small town to guide them. You could literally see them coming from miles away. The Cold War changed everything. The Soviets started developing more capable surface-to-air missiles that could reach out and touch aircraft at increasingly ridiculous distances. The Americans responded with iconic machines like the SR-71 Blackbird and B-2 Spirit, planes that could fly higher, faster, and eventually more invisibly. But the real game changer wasn't more advanced technology, it was proliferation. Major powers started flooding proxy conflicts with portable air defense systems. The Soviets shipped thousands of SA-7s and SA-14s to anyone willing to fight the Americans. The Americans countered by giving Stingers to the Afghan Mujahideen, who promptly used them to turn expensive Soviet helicopters into expensive scrap metal. Now your biggest nightmare isn't only an advanced S-400 system operated by trained professionals, it's also that same S-400's little brother, a man-pad in the hands of someone who learned how to use it from a 2-week training course. Man-portable air defense systems have become the ultimate asymmetric weapon. The Stinger costs around $50,000 per missile. The Russian Igla, about $80,000. The Chinese FN-6? Even cheaper. Compare that to the cost of modern fighters or helicopters, and Congress members start alligator arming when the bill comes. Man-pads like the Stinger can engage targets up to 15,000 feet and 4.8 kilometers away. The Igla-S extends that to 6 kilometers. These aren't area denial weapons anymore. They're aircraft killers that fit in a backpack. Ukraine has received thousands of Stinger and Endorsement systems, and they've been devastatingly effective against Russian helicopters and low-flying aircraft. The worst part? Man-pads are everywhere. Over 40 countries manufacture them, and they've proliferated to dozens of non-state actors. The Strela 2 has been found in conflicts from Afghanistan to Libya to Syria. Remember when drones were massive Predator aircraft that cost millions? Today's battlefield drone looks like a DJI Mavic, except it's carrying explosives. Ukraine's kamikaze drones cost around $400 and can destroy Russian helicopters worth $15 million. Commercial quadcopters modified with explosives have taken out Russian Ka-52 Alligator attack helicopters. Traditional air defense radars designed to spot MiG-29s and Su-27s completely miss these small, slow targets. And it ain't just cheap, slow movers that are threatening military aviators. Really, drones and man-pads are just supplementing the bigger platforms. Hypersonic weapons like Russia's Kinzhal and China's DFZF travel at Mach 5 or faster, over 3,800 miles per hour. By the time you detect one coming, you are probably cooked. Traditional missile defense systems work by tracking predictable trajectories, but some newer weapons can change direction mid-flight and move so fast that interceptor missiles can't catch up. Modern military aircraft like the F-35 or Eurofighter Typhoon are essentially flying computers. Electronic warfare systems can jam radar, spoof GPS coordinates, or disable communications entirely. Russian Krasuka-4 and Moskva electronic warfare systems can jam aircraft radars and communications from hundreds of kilometers away. Electronic warfare equipment that once required massive installations now fits in pickup trucks. The F-22 Raptor and F-35 Lightning Natauku use angular designs, radar-absorbing materials, and internal weapons bays to minimize radar signature. A conventional F-16 has a radar cross-section the size of a car. An F-22's RCS is closer to a marble. The catch? Stealth works best against specific radar frequencies. Change the frequency or attack from an unexpected direction, and your invisible F-35 could be tracked. Heat-seeking man-pads like the Stinger don't care about radar stealth, they track infrared signatures. Modern aircraft use thrust vectoring, heat dispersal, and special coatings to reduce thermal signatures, but a hovering AH-64 Apache or low-flying A-10 Warthog still glows like the sun to infrared sensors. Chaff creates false radar targets by filling the sky with millions of of tiny metallic strips that reflect radar waves. Modern dispensers on aircraft like the F-16 can create sophisticated patterns designed to confuse specific threats like the SA-6 Gainful or SA-11 Buk. The idea is simple. Make the enemy radar see dozens of targets where there's only one aircraft, or create a cloud so dense that the real aircraft disappears in the electronic noise. But chaff isn't just random strips of metal anymore. Modern chaff is cut to specific lengths to match the wavelengths of enemy radars. Some chaff even has different materials mixed in to create more convincing false targets. The problem is that smart missiles are getting better at distinguishing between chaff clouds and actual aircraft, leading to an ongoing arms race between chaff designers and missile guidance systems. Flares burn hotter than aircraft engines to decoy heat-seeking missiles. Modern flares are programmed to mimic specific aircraft signatures, different patterns for different aircraft types. Some aircraft like the C-130 Hercules now carry towed decoys that mimic radar signatures but are far enough away that missile hits don't damage the aircraft. The EA-18 Growler can project enormous amounts of electronic noise, creating protective bubbles for strike packages. Traditional AWACS platforms like the E-3 Sentry are becoming vulnerable to long-range SAMs, so distributed jamming is taking over. Instead of one obvious E-3 AWACS, modern forces use F-35s, EA-18 Growlers, and even naval vessels like Arleigh Burke destroyers to create overlapping electronic protection zones. Electronic support measures passively monitor the electromagnetic spectrum, identifying threats like S-400 radars or Pantsir S-1 systems before they can engage. Russia's air campaign failures weren't just about technology, they were about terrible tactics. Russian Su-34 fullbacks and Ka-52 helicopters flew the same routes repeatedly without proper SEAD missions against Ukrainian S-300 and Buk systems. Modern CID operations use dedicated aircraft like the Growler and F-16CJ Wild Weasel variants to suppress enemy air defenses. Russia skipped this step entirely, leaving their aircraft vulnerable to Ukrainian SA-11 and SA-15 systems. Single aircraft operations are suicide. Modern strike packages coordinate F-35s, EA-18 Growlers, E-3 AWACS, and KC-135 tankers. Russia has lost over 170 aircraft, partly because they operated in isolation without proper electronic warfare support. Predictability kills. Flying the same route at the same time every day means Ukrainian Stinger teams know exactly where to wait. Russia entered with Su-35 flankers, Su-34 fullbacks, and Ka-52 attack helicopters. They immediately lost dozens of aircraft to Ukrainian S-300, Buk, and Manpad systems because they flew predictable patterns without jamming support. Ukrainian mobile SA-11s and SA-15 Gauntlet systems proved much harder to locate and destroy than expected. Russia's failure to conduct proper SEAD operations meant Ukrainian air defenses remained largely intact. An F-35A costs $82 million. An F-22's full program cost reaches over $300 million per aircraft. Pilot training adds another $5 to $10 million. The threats? A Stinger missile costs $50,000. A Ukrainian kamikaze drone costs $400. A Russian Shahed drone costs $35,000. You're spending $80 to million to protect against threats costing $400 to $50,000. Aircraft like the F-35 are experimenting with laser defense systems. AI-powered systems can react in milliseconds to incoming SA-24 Grinch or Stinger missiles. Loyal wingman programs like the Australian MQ-28 Ghost Bat provide expendable decoys for manned fighters. The days of guaranteed air superiority are over. Every air mission requires extensive planning for SA-21 sites, manpad teams, and electronic warfare threats that didn't exist until recently. The golden age of military aviation isn't over, but its free pass definitely is. And it's keeping military planners awake at night. This is Steel Mallard. If you enjoyed watching military aviation's multi-billion-dollar headache unfold, smash that like button and subscribe for more videos about why nothing in warfare is ever as simple as it looks. Stay out of manpad range and stay tuned for the next one.